What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to talk about what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar going into tomorrow and what happened with Jerome Powell as he caused the market to ironically pump instead of dump. I'm also going to break down what's happening with news involving Tesla and Mexico and how things are going forward on the charts. But before I break into the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, guys, the market looks bullish. The market pumps like crazy thanks to Jerome Powell. SPY is up, the QQQ is up, Tesla is up, and Tesla has more upside potential. But the question is, why was this different from what I was predicting? Why is this different from what a lot of people were expecting? Here is the answer. So, if you look at the latest inflationary data, just look at the chart right here, guys. You guys could see that for the last few months, inflation has been ticking up just a bit. The January inflationary numbers were a bit hotter than expected, and the same thing happened in February, right? The February numbers were hotter than expected too during the last CPI. And in the last CPI increased a little bit, and the report was a little bit harder than expected, which is not the best of news. So that basically is showing us that with the GDP revisions and some contraction in the economy, and with the strong employment numbers we're getting, inflation is not necessarily something that we should just kind of like kick down the road or like say that's just out of the water from this point on. I think that there is a risk of inflation remaining at these levels for quite some time as it's very sticky. And logically speaking, the Fed should have been a little bit more on the hawkish side. The Fed should have just said they have to monitor the situation more. They have to be a lot more careful. Typically, that's what they should have said, especially because inflation is still, hitting these levels that are harder than expected. And that's the most logical thing, in my personal opinion, that should have been expected from yesterday. Now, nothing could be guaranteed in the markets. When I gave you guys my predictions on the markets, I told you guys the bullish and bearish cases. I did tell you that I favored the bearish case a bit more because of the fact that inflation was hot. But instead of being a little bit more hawkish, Jerome Powell did the opposite, and the guy ended up being a bit more on the dovish side instead. So what happened? What's going on with the numbers? What happened with Jerome Powell? Right? Inflation is starting to go up a bit. Inflation has been harder than expected, and yet Jerome Powell was talking about easing conditions. Yet the guy was saying that inflation is not looking too bad. It's very close to their expectations, anyways, and the Fed is getting it ready to ease up. He did favor that a bit more, and that is not what a lot of people were expecting. That's not what I expected, especially looking at this data, and that's why the market started pumping the way it did. Powell favored with the bulls instead. Could this be because of the election, its manipulation? Could it be because he's trying to squeeze shorts? Many argue that Jerome Powell is the biggest market maker. Who knows, guys? Let's just focus on what he said. I know that it doesn't always happen as we predict. Sometimes unexpected things could happen. That's part of the market. That's part of trading. I told you guys to be prepared for anything, even though I did favor one side. I just gave you guys my prediction, but it could be wrong because sometimes Jerome Powell does illogical things. Sometimes things that you don't expect could happen. So the best thing to do is just improve and then continue forward. So what did Jerome Powell say? This person right here, known as I may be saying their name wrong, but it's Sven. I may be saying it wrong, but anyways, basically they came out and they're saying that Powell pretended to wants to be like a Volcker, but has gone full Arthur Burns by encouraging even further easing in financial conditions despite inflation and growth upward revisions. And then on top of this, he had lots of opportunities to tone things down, but instead he encouraged animal spirits on every step of the way since mid-December. So he's saying that if this turns out to be a policy error down the road, Jerome Powell will be the one to blame. So I do agree with this point, actually. When inflation is, looking the way it is, things are very, very stern. And generally, you want to see the Fed kind of like monitor the situation closely and be a little bit careful with what they say. But now Jerome Powell is talking about cuts potentially coming, how, inflation is not that bad and this and that. And you have to be very careful. With their latest forecast, they're signaling 3 rate cuts in 2024. With the rate cuts, despite the hot inflationary data, for them to be focusing on this is what helped the market fuel upwards. They did revise this a little bit, so basically we're looking at 3 cuts towards the end of 2024. Powell said that the strategy is they're going to keep rates high for a little longer into 2024, and then during the last months, most likely, I think that's what he was implying, they may start to cut a little bit. Going into 2025, things were a little bit They were revised just a little bit. They're basically expecting to keep them a little bit higher than before. But by 2026 and beyond, things are going to be very close to the same. So the revisions are very similar to before, but the Fed is signaling 3 rate cuts in 2024, possibly during the later end of this year. That is important because Powell is talking about easing on policy. Powell is talking about how inflation is not as bad as people make it seem. He's saying all these different things. Many could disagree with him, but I think the point I want to make is the fact that Powell could have different intentions. Could it be because the election is coming up? Could it be he doesn't want the market to get rug pulled? It could be all sorts of different things. I believe that if you thought Powell would rug pull the markets, you weren't really a fool for thinking that. That's logical considering that the last inflationary reports were harder than expected. And yet, the guy did what he had to do. So the best thing we could do is just accept it and move on from here. Powell also mentioned that the Fed does not want to ease up too much and also be too strict simultaneously. But he did say that there's been a lot of progress and they're getting ready for those cuts as of right now. So that's why the market was excited. That's why the market pumps the way it did. Powell was being more dovish, if anything, and the market absolutely liked it. You can see the numbers are right here for the first year. We're going to see about a 3.9% rate at the end. And 3.1% is the next revision for what we saw during the second year. And then moving forward, we're also going to be talking about a longer term 2.6% revision instead of 2.5%. So longer term rates are likely going to be the same as what they were projecting from before. For the short term, they are expecting some more cuts. So that's actually a big change. With that being said, with the 3 cuts potentially coming for the end of the year, that's bullish news for Tesla, technically speaking. And because Jerome Powell failed to keep his tone upwards, because he failed to be more hawkish and he just favored quantitative easing a little bit more, this in turn has led to the market pumping, and this is going to be bullish for Tesla. And the best thing we can now do is just react to this and just continue to move forward from here. So I'm going to talk about the charts in just a minute. Some news involving Tesla. The EV sales have grown 94% year over year in Mexico as the Model Y is leading the market. That sounds great and all, but Mexico is actually a small market for Tesla. Only about 20,000 of the EVs were sold over there. But it's okay because it's still, it's a growing market and things will be fine moving forward. So that's a good piece of news for them. This is what the sales look like in Mexico. You guys can see in 2023, we got some strong numbers. So that's making some headlines. There was also news that came out, about how Tesla's trying to increase its 4680 cell production for the Cybertruck. So that's been increasing to about 1,000 units. That's been pretty good for them in the Giga Texas. And other analysts are saying that Tesla is at a buy rating. So we got some nice buy ratings too. So some good news is coming out for Tesla. On top of this, Goldman Sachs gave Goldman Sachs gave Tesla a neutral rating. On top of this, the price price ratio is kind of flat, it's starting to bounce right here. I think it might start going up as Tesla's starting to outperform the market, and it was very, very oversold, so it is due for a bounce. And additionally, we do have a tendency of being green about, I would say, about 48% of the time on Thursdays. But I think that Tesla might actually still bounce anyways, despite that statistic. At 11 o'clock a.m., 1 p.m., and also the second to last hour of the day, Tesla tends to be more volatile. Look for volatility at those times. As March tends to be a decent month for Tesla, let's hope we get a bounce soon. And despite this, I do believe that Tesla is going to get that bounce. I want to note that Tesla had about 83 million in volume, yet the share price is up quite a bit. That shows that it's less sensitive to volume, and this thing could move quite a bit on less volume. Short volume is going down just a little bit, so that's a good sign for Tesla. What do I see for this moving forward? I would say that the chart looks bullish to me. It managed to bounce, and Jerome Powell, he failed to cause this thing to really get some kind of rug pull or anything like that. Instead, the guy just, whether it's because of the election or whatever it was, he talked about how the Fed is going to get ready for cutting more than around 3 times for the year. He also talked about how the Fed is going to continue to monitor the situation. He gave, the same speech as before, but at the same time, he did favor easing a little bit more, being a bit more dovish. So that's good news for Tesla. I do think Tesla's going to run to at least 180. I do favor that, maybe even above that. If we break that, watch 182.5. And if that breaks, I think we could try to fill our gap up to about 187.5. So the chart looks bullish. We're going to be looking for a push to at least 180 very soon. If we want to turn bearish, we want to see Tesla lose 172. If we lose that, we could start sinking back down to 168. But I don't really favor that. I think that Tesla's going to slowly uptrend and hit 180 plus very, very soon. The chart looks bullish to me, so do technicals. Additionally, if you look at Tesla on the daily time frame, our 20 EMA lands at 180. I think Tesla could try to break that and fill its gap. And we also have another gap on the daily all the way up to about the 187.5 to 188 area. So I see it basically pushing up higher towards at least 180, and I think Tesla's going to break out now. For SPY, it really depends on how well we hold above 520, but I do favor more upside now. I have to make a big adjustment. Once again, guys, I know a lot of people are not happy about how this really went out. I admit that unexpected things could happen. Jerome Powell did something that was not the most logical move, and it could happen because it just tricks a lot of investors. There could be other intentions too. But the best thing to do is just be reactive and try to be optimistic no matter what. So SPY is looking bullish on the daily time frame, and to add on to this, you're going to be watching resistance right over here at 521.25. If we break 521.25 on SPY, so that's the level like right here, going to be looking for a test of about 523 by tomorrow. And if that breaks, 525 is next. If we lose 520, we're going to come all the way down to 518 or below that. And then we could start sinking. 520 is going to be our key support. I think the chart looks bullish, is trying to push more. Could be looking for 523 tomorrow, if not 525. The chart is looking bullish, in my opinion, so long as we hold above 520. On the QQQ, I'm seeing something very similar. Basically, our support right here is at 444. If we lose this, we could start sinking closer to the low 440s. If we break past 446, I think we're going to test 446, if not break that. If that breaks, 448 is next. The QQQ is looking bullish, getting a nice bounce. Jerome Powell has favored being more dovish, and this has helped the market. He wasn't being scary. He didn't talk about being more restrictive. Instead, he's been talking more about those cuts, and the market absolutely loved it. Now the market is pushing up even higher. The best thing we could do is just react and accept it. The QQQ is looking bullish. We could push even more. On Nvda, in my opinion, is trying to push a bit, but watch resistance at 908. If we break this, we could push towards 920. If we break down, watch 900 as support. If we lose that, we could retest 885. But the chart's looking bullish. We could see a breakout from here with a nice, inverse. This is more of like an accumulation structure. Actually, I wouldn't say an inverse head and shoulders. So Nvidia looks like it's going to break out and start pushing to 920 plus. The chart looks bullish. Thank you, Jerome Powell, for that pump. On Apple stock has been dropping because some bearish news came out involving Chinese sales. Going to be looking to see how it reacts to the 175 area. So I could see this drop a little bit towards 175. We're going to be watching to see if we get a bounce from there or not. If we lose 175, we could actually start sinking to 172.5 again. If we hold 175, we're going to be looking for a bounce back up to 177. My guts tells me it might bounce, so watch support on Apple. With that being said, guys, this is part of trading. Sometimes unexpected things could happen even on the news. And when I gave you guys my prediction, I told you that if SPY was bullish, watch 520. If you were bearish, watch at 511. I did favor bears a bit more because of the fact that it was more probable for the Fed to be a bit more hawkish with hot inflationary data coming out. But instead of worrying about that, the Fed is just maintaining their easing. They're becoming a lot more careful. And they said that things are not looking too bad. So we're going to take their word for it, just accept what they're saying, and just continue to trade as we are. This is helping the market push, so we're going to remain bullish for now. The whole market is going to be affected by Powell. That's how much power he has. We have this gap to fill on Rivian at 11.7. If we break this, we're going to be looking for a move towards 12.1. The chart looks bullish for now. So if I got a big bounce, going to be looking for a test of 7.63. Going to be looking for another push. I do favor that a little bit more. On ARM in my opinion, can start pushing up towards resistance at 133. If we break past this, we're going to be looking for a push for about 136.5. I do favor that a little bit more on the daily time frame, especially we could push a little bit higher. For super micro, I think that this is looking a little bit more bullish. It's trying to rebound. We have this gap to fill at about 1,000 and resistance at 980. I think that super micro is going to bounce and test 925 and eventually start pushing to 950 plus. I think it's going to bounce thanks to Powell, so look for that very carefully. On Palantir, I think that the chart's looking kind of bullish. If we keep pushing, we're going to be looking for a test of 25. If that breaks, we could push a little higher. I favor that somewhat more, so look for that as well. On the IWM Russell 2000, this could bounce as well. Going to be looking for a test of 207 as resistance. If that breaks, then we're going to see 210. I think 210 is very probable on the IWM. For a couple more, we have Microsoft. Microsoft, in my opinion, could push towards 428, then eventually 430 plus. I think the chart's still bullish. Respecting a very, very nice uptrend, I think it's going to push higher. So this chart is looking, excuse me, the chart is looking pretty good right now. 430 plus is a real possibility. For AMD is at support at 176. If we hold 176, we're going to be looking for a rebound to 186. If we lose 176, we turn bearish. So the chart hasn't gone a big bounce yet, but I think that it has potential to do so, especially when we look at our 4-hour time frame. I do believe it has some potential. So I'm going to be looking for a test of at least 186. I think this thing may attempt to bounce on AMD, but we have to make sure we hold 176. If we get that hold, we're going to be looking for a nice bounce on this chart. For a couple more, we also have the VIX. Now the VIX is continuing to sink. We're barely holding 13. We still look kind of bearish, so it could drop a little bit more. But we're going to be watching to see how close we get to the 12.69 area, around that area. It could start sinking more, so it looks bearish, and this is because of SPY potentially pushing higher alongside the other futures in the S&P 500. SQQQ looks very bearish, continuing to fall as the QQQ is breaking out. We're at support right now, but it could sink lower. The dollar index is in a very similar position, continuing to sink. We could end up losing 103. If that's the case, a bigger drop will be coming. All the way down to about 102.8 will be our next target below that. If this keeps sinking, this is going to be a bullish signal for the stock market. For Coinbase, we're bullish, getting a nice breakout. Going to be looking for a push of about 269. If that breaks, 275 is next. The chart looks bullish. Thank you to Jerome Powell and the others out there. We're getting a very, very nice push. Google's trying to bounce right here. Watch 148 and 147.5 as support. If we lose that, we could be sinking to 144. If we're bullish, you want to see it break past 150. If that breaks, watch 152. I favor 152 plus on Google, so look for a bounce on that. For Amazon, if we try to hold above 178, we're going to be looking for a push towards 180. And if we lose 177, we're going to be sinking down to 176. My guts tells me that 180 is going to be our target. We could see Amazon push higher towards 180, so watch for that carefully. On Amazon, we're going to be looking for a push towards, well, in my opinion, the chart looks bullish. Again, we're going to be looking for, did I say Amazon? I'm in Meta. Sorry, guys, Meta. This looks like it's going to test 510. If that breaks, we have a target of about 517 that's coming next. So I do see a big bounce on Meta. I think the whole market looks like it's going to push higher. Jerome Powell, has a very, very big effect on how we move. So look for more upside, guys. The market could push even more from here. Now, let me just say that when things go wrong in the market, sometimes we can make predictions. I could be wrong when I predict something sometimes. But I just want to say that none of us could have really called this as well, considering that inflation has been going up for the last couple of months. And, the reports were a little bit harder than expected. Despite that, Jerome Powell is still maintaining his stance. So let's just hope that he is correct. Let's hope that inflation continues to drop in the best for every American out there. I just want good news from that end, and we'll have to see how it goes. Many people have been speculating that the reason why Powell was being this dovish is because the election is coming up in just not too long from now, right? And Powell is just trying to keep the market afloat because of it. That's one possibility. Who knows? Honestly, guys, I personally think that Powell did not make the best of moves. He should have been a little bit more stringent looking at policy, but if you want to do what you want to do, then so be it. And we're just going to react to it, and we're going to be as unbiased as possible. So watch support and resistance on the charts I called out. And just know that the market is favoring upside. I do favor Tesla breaking past 180 very soon, hitting 180 if not breaking past it. So we have some room to go on Tesla, and I'm going to be looking for a nice bounce. It is what it is, guys. If you ended up experiencing a loss today when trading, brush it off, review what went wrong, manage risks, do what's necessary, and always remember that it's not the end of the world. You are very capable of getting some nice greens out there. Come back stronger, never give up, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one. Thank you for listening. Tesla to the moon because the long term is very bright. Let's see a big push on Tesla to 180 plus, and we'll see how things go. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and peace out.